Hi, today I'm going to be taking you through the necessary cards so that we can get you playing with the Hog Cycle deck that is best suited to you. Let's get this out of the way first. This is entirely my opinion and I'm trying to take you through my thought process for deck building. As I mentioned, the cards or interactions that are sort of brought up in this video, I'll be trying to have them come up on the screen so you guys can see exactly what I'm on about. So we've got 8 card slots and an archetype in mind, Hog Cycle, leaving us with 7 card slots to fill. So where do we start? I'm going to start with the basics and then what type of cards we're after and what you should keep in mind when picking your cards. So card levels, synergies and that kind of stuff. When building a Hog Cycle deck, I recommend aiming for an average elixir cost of 2.6 up to a maximum of 3.3 elixir, with the most expensive card costing a maximum of about 5 elixir. You could push 6, but I'm going to put a hard limit for this video at least at 5 elixir. Of course, this isn't all set in stone. My personal Hog Cycle deck has a 2.5 average elixir cost, so it just sort of proves that it's all sort of unique to each player and what they're comfortable playing. Out of the 7 card slots that we're trying to fill, I'd recommend taking 2 spells, 4 cards that cost 2 or less elixir, at least 1 card that can tank damage for your Hog Rider, at least 1 troop that deals splash damage, a minimum of 2 troops that can target air, and a ground swarm. I'll go through what I mean with all of these shortly. If you can spare a card slot, a building would also be very much a nice to have, but isn't entirely necessary as in all decks. I'll take a look at each section individually very shortly. So let's break this down slightly, as I've just named 12 cards that would be ideal for only 7 slots. The trick here is filling multiple card criteria with single cards. For example, you could use Zap or Log as one of your spells, which also costs 2 elixir, meaning 1 less cycle card to find. But I'll cover this more in depth as we take a look into each section. When choosing your cards, it's important to keep in mind how it's going to interact with the other cards that you've chosen. This is known as synergists. So if your cards don't synergize well, the deck is likely to fall apart before you've even finished building it. I'll be building some decks using this advice in a follow-up video, which will have a live match or 2 with each deck, also showing how this advice can lead to popular decks such as 2.6 Hog Cycle or Hognado. So with all of that out of the way, let's take a look at which cards fit into each of the different sections that I've laid out. Spells. There are 15 spells in Clash Royale, 13 of which are cheap enough to get under our 5 cost maximum. These spells in cost order are Heal, Barbarian Barrel, Rage, Snowball, Vlog, Zap, Arrows, Clone, Earthquake, Royal Delivery, Tornado, Fireball, and Poison. Because of our need for things to happen quickly, I'm going to recommend removing Poison from this list along with Clone and Heal, as we won't be able to build up a push that can truly benefit from them unless using the Minor in the Poison's case. Rage is also a very situational card, and although I wouldn't recommend it in this kind of deck, there are decks that you could build around it. So I'm going to remove it from the list. For the 2 spells that we take, I would recommend that at least one of them is Snowball, Vlog, or Zap. These are great for cycling and have a great damage to cost ratio, though you could easily take 2 of these spells and use other cards to synergize with them. While we have synergists on the table, Fireball synergizes extremely well with each of these 3 spells, and also gives you a good trade for elixir pumps. Spells like Arrows and Royal Delivery should be considered based on what you're seeing in the meta. So if you're seeing lots of minions, archers, or goblins running around the arena, Arrows or the Royal Delivery could be a good choice for you. Again, Earthquake should be in the deck if you're seeing a lot of buildings in your matches, especially Elixir Pump and Expo. Similarly, Tornado should be used as a utility for synergists within the deck if you're running something like the Wizard or Executioner to maximise the value that you get from their splash damage. Remember to keep levels in mind when choosing your cards, as their interactions with the opponent's card will be different if your levels are lower. Cycle cards. There are 14 cards which cost 2 or less in Clash Royale, not including the mirror. These are Heal, Ice Spirit, Skeletons, Barbarian Barrel, Bats, Fire Spirits, Goblins, Ice Golem, Rage, Spear Goblins, the Log, Snowball, Wall Breakers, and Zap. You can see that we're already starting to see cards fill out multiple slots in the deck, as we can already see that the spells could be used to cycle back to your Hog or any other card that you may need. We've already eliminated Heal and Rage, so let's start with the most obvious cards for cycling, Ice Spirit and Skeletons, as they cost a mere 1 elixir each. Both of these cards are fabulous on defense and offense, and I'd recommend taking at least one of these, if not both. The Ice Spirit synergizes well with most 2-cost spells, finishing off a lot of targets, or could buy your Hog an extra hit or two depending on the scenario, while the Skeletons could provide a good distraction for a P.E.K.K.A. or Prince, buying you time to save for a more substantial defense. The Goblins fill the same role as the Skeletons, but provide more of a threat, ploughing through tanks quicker or forcing a response from a Hog push, but at the cost of not being able to cycle quite as fast as if we took these Skeletons. The spells we've already covered, so let's take a look at the Bats, Fire Spirits and Spear Goblins, as these are cheap answers to air threats. The Bats are a fairly good choice for getting through air threats such as Lava Hound and Balloon, or both, because you know that's a thing. The Fire Spirits provide a nice concentrated splash damage comparable to the likes of a small fireball. They can be used to cycle by popping them at the bridge to get some cheeky chip damage, or on the defense against the likes of minions, or even can take down a lone musketeer with the help of the tower without taking any damage yourself. The Spear Goblins give a good stream of damage to air or ground troops, while also providing a squishy distraction for the likes of P.E.K.K.A. I'd recommend bringing these into the arena if you don't take the Skeletons or the Goblins. The Ice Golem is a common sight in Hog Cycle decks, as they can act as a glass tank for your Hog on the offense, fulfilling another criteria that we're about to talk about. Or can be used to kite troops across the arena so that you can more easily deal with individual troops. It's also worth noting that its death damage synergizes fantastically with Snowball and Zap, much like the Ice Spirit, or can just be used to slow down would-be meat eaters and buy your Hog Rider a precious hit on an opponent's tower. I straight up would not recommend that you put the Wall Breakers in a Hog Cycle deck. Remember, we want around 4 of these cards if possible, so that we can play a card that we need and be able to cycle back to that card as quickly as we possibly can. Tanks. This is the first of our more subjective sections, so I filtered the list ever so slightly. I'd say that the troops that can be used to fill this role within our price range are Ice Golem, Knight, Miner, Valkyrie, Mini P.E.K.K.A, Lumberjack, Dark Prince, and the Battle Healer. There are other viable options, but I filtered them out for one reason or another, though out of the 8 that are provided here, I'd say the first 4 would definitely be the best options. Lumberjack and Mini P.E.K.K.A are good for their multi-purpose as tank killers, but lack truly good health to tank for the Hog, and there are even scenarios where I would play a Hog to tank for them. The Ice Golem we've already discussed in the cycle cards, so let's take a look at the Knight first. The Knight, when placed in front of a Hog, will not get pushed all the way to the tower like the Valkyrie and Ice Golem do. Instead, when they're about halfway there, the Knight gets pushed out to the side by the Hog Rider. For his price, he has a very good amount of health and has the benefit of also being able to defend himself and kill enemy troops. The Miner has a clear benefit in that he can be deployed directly onto the enemy towers, meaning that if you're struggling to get your Hog to the tower because the enemy can cycle cannons or bomb towers very quickly, you have an alternative win condition. For his price, he has a moderate amount of health, but this is a sacrifice that may be worth it for the extra damage directly to the towers. The Valkyrie is the most expensive of these 4 more highly recommended tanks. She has great health for her cost, and as mentioned, when placed in front of a Hog Rider, will be pushed all the way to the tower if not distracted. On top of this, her damage is splash damage, meaning that the opponent can't react by swarming with a Goblin Gang or Skami. All 4 of these cards have a clear benefit over each of the others, so it's just a matter of personal preference to you, but I'll be sure to use each of them in the follow-up video for you to see how they interact with the other cards in the decks. Splash damage. I must admit, this is only a section because I believe, personally, that every deck should have at least one splasher to aid in getting good value both on defense and the offense. Eligible splashes for Hog Cycle decks are as follows: Ice Spirit, Fire Spirit, Ice Golem, Bomber, Firecracker, Ice Wizard, Princess, Valkyrie, Baby Dragon, Dark Prince, Executioner, and Wizard. Notice that the Executioner and Wizard are the first cards that I've recommended that cost 5 elixir. This is because they can get tremendous value if played correctly. If you take either of these, I'd also recommend taking the Tornado as mentioned earlier, which is a lethal combination at the heart of a very popular Hog Cycle deck, Hognado. Although Dark Prince is cool, for the same reason as before, I'd put him on the bottom of the recommendations for this section. We've covered Fire Spirits and the Ice Spirit already, but the Bomber and Firecracker are able to get amazing value for their cost. The Bomber is able to survive arrows, but this is at the cost of targeting air troops. So I'd take Firecracker if your air defense is lackluster, but the Bomber if you feel you don't need any more projectiles flying around to destroy those pesky balloons. The Princess is possibly the best investment card in the game. Pop her down at the back of the opposite lane that you would like to attack, and she can support both defensively and offensively. And if you need a couple of unexpected juicy hits on the enemy tower, a Princess at the bridge could win you the game. The Ice Wizard, on the other hand, is a bit better on the defense, causing less hits on your tower and possibly taking out smaller squishy units in the process like skeletons and goblins. But if he can then be incorporated into a counterattack, he could gain you an extra hit or two with your hog when he needs it the most. The Ice Golem is in this section for his death damage, which, as mentioned earlier, synergizes very well with the likes of Zap and Snowball. Air targeting troops. Again, I'll pre-trim this list, otherwise we'll be here all day. There's arguably a total of 30 troops that can target air troops, but this includes the likes of Goblin Gang and Rascals, as well as the Goblin Giant and Ice Golem due to his death damage. There are 22 that I would recommend for varying reasons, and that's trimmed down. So these are Ice Spirit, Bats, Fire Spirits, Spear Goblins, Ice Golem, Archers, Firecracker, Goblin Gang, due to the inclusion of the Spear Goblins, Minions, Dark Goblin, Mega Minion, Ice Wizard, Princess, Musketeer, Baby Dragon, Hunter, but he only just makes the cut here, Electro Wizard, Inferno Dragon, Magic Archer, Rascals, Wizard, and Executioner. We've already talked about a fair few of these, so I'll try not to double up here. Archers are up first. These two girls can help chomp through almost anything with ease, but you should be wary about putting them down in a group with other troops as they are susceptible to almost all of the spells in the game. Goblin Gang is here for the same reasons that you would take Spear Goblins, except you get a bit of extra protection for them. There's a huge offensive benefit to taking them into battle, you just need to be careful about positioning, especially if the opponent has the log. Minions are much the same as archers, though I wouldn't recommend taking these with the archers. I did this for a long time, and arrows on all of them at the same time is very, very disheartening, especially if there's a balloon on the way across the river, leaving you with nothing to defend against it. Dark Goblin and Musketeer are very similar, and which one you take will likely depend on the current meta and your card levels. Both can plow through the toughest of enemies given the time to do so, but if you're seeing a lot of arrows or logs in your matches, then Musketeer is definitely the way to go, unless you're trying to purposely incorporate an aspect of spell bait into the deck, in which case the Dark Goblin may actually still be a viable option for you. Magic Archer can aid in dealing with very large pushes and also getting rid of squishy defences. He's not taken very often for Hog Cycle, but is a solid choice depending on what else you've taken. Rascals are difficult to not recommend, as you get a tank and 2 air targeting troops intent on getting bubblegum into their target's hair, but they can also be difficult to make work unless, again, you're trying to introduce an aspect of log bait into your deck. Mega Minion, Baby Dragon, Hunter, Ewiz and Inferno Dragon aren't particularly popular choices for Hog Cycle, but may be the way to go if synergies with other cards are what you're after. Or maybe the meta has just forced your hand. If you're seeing a lot of P.E.K.K.A.s or Giants or Golems, then the Inferno Dragon may be an amazing choice. If you're seeing a lot of Inferno Dragons or Inferno Towers on the opponent's side, then the Ewiz may be a very solid choice to back up your Zap and possibly the Ice Spirit, just to make sure that your Hog definitely gets to that tower. As a final note for this section, I'd recommend picking these last, as your other choices will also be able to guide this choice, as it gives the most options out of any section within this guide. Swarm Troops. So let me clarify what I mean by swarms. A swarm is a troop card that puts multiple troops into the arena. In this guide, I'll be limiting my chat about swarms to ground troops, as they are more necessary to distract and block troops that are coming towards your towers. The swarms that I would recommend are Skeletons, Fire Spirits, Goblins, Spear Goblins, Goblin Gang, Guards, Skarmy, and Rascals. We've already talked about all of these except for Guards and Skarmy. Skarmy is the largest swarm within the game, but also provides the most value for the enemies carrying the likes of Zap, Snowball or Log. It can stop a Hog from getting to your tower, or single-handedly take down Big Mama P.E.K.K.A. or most single non-splash troops for that matter. The Guards on the other hand provide free shielded skeletons, giving a big distraction for the larger troops as well as protection against all spells due to their shield. However, they aren't as good at dealing with faster troops like an opponent's Hog Rider, Ram Rider or any other kind of rider. There are clear benefits to all swarms, but a key thing to look for here is how much time they can buy you and how does that compare to the overall cost of the card. General advice. Some last pointers in the right direction on the card choices and playstyles that you might choose. Lean into your card levels. If you want to use your level 10 Valkyrie in the ladder but your Knight is level 12, use the Knight and maybe consider requesting Valkyries from your clan until she's the same level. Keep a battle plan in mind. It's not about getting as many hogs onto the enemy towers as possible. You also need to build up dynamic pushes and be able to put up a good defense. Variety is key. Keep notes on the meta that you are seeing, so don't just rely on what others are saying. If you're seeing a lot of Lava Hound, consider taking some extra air defense, so maybe a third or even a fourth air defense card. For Golem, maybe a heavier hitting tank or even a mini P.E.K.K.A. on top of your other troops. Synergies aren't everything, but they do make life a lot easier. Keep a plan in mind for if the enemy decides to play an elixir pump. This is a pretty big one. This is something that again is debatable as to whether you have to do it. I personally don't do it, but I run a dirt cheap deck that allows me to provide a very quick and powerful push on either lane in reaction to a pump. Bear the game mode that you're going to be playing in mind. A well-made ladder deck doesn't always translate well into challenges or 2v2. I hope you found this really helpful. I've enjoyed making it and just talking about this, and I kind of hope that this helps you to build the best Hog Cycle deck for you. Just try to bear in mind as much as you possibly can when you're building your own deck. As I mentioned, I'm going to be building up 4 or 5 separate decks, 2 of which will be very commonly taken Hog Cycle decks. So I'll be taking 2.6 Hog and Hog Nado, and then I'll be building 3 of my own. Then I'll be able to show you how this advice can be used to build those decks and deconstruct each choice and why it was taken. So if you enjoyed this content or just want to talk to me live and have a discussion about this video, you can find me over on Twitch. I stream every Saturday and Sunday, 12 noon UK time, and I'm always happy to answer any questions over there, or feel free to pop a question in the comment section. Please make sure to like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I hope to see you in the next video. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next video talking about how you made a deck that was perfect for yourself using this video. So I'll see you then, and as always, have a nice day.